Right, here's a video I feel I have to do, and it's a gripe that does my head in with GT7, and it's the good old track limits in combination with dodgy curb physics, and they are a total embarrassment to the game and PD. Now the first thing I've got to do is explain why curbs are the way they are in real life and why they are completely wrong in GT7. And it's to do with track limits and the shape of the curbs themselves. So this is the FIA official regulations. Yes, I know GT7 isn't FIA compliant and isn't that convenient, and they lost their license for FIA credibility since GT Sport. This would be one of the reasons why. So the highlighted bit you can see says, for the avoidance of doubt, the white lines defining the track edges are considered a part of the track, but the curbs are not. So one of the problems with GT7 is the track limits do not match the white lines, and they're inconsistent track to track, and it doesn't matter whether the track's fictional or, more importantly, real. And this is where the first part of the problem lies. So this is the first problem with the curb physics. If your inside front goes on a curb, the outside rear loses traction and you spit. That does not happen in real life. I've watched hundreds of thousands of real life races, and I don't ever remember seeing that happen. So that's one problem. So let's go a classic fictional track for the old classic track limits. So that is legal, well inside the white line. Now we all know this. We all know where the track limits are because we've done it by trial and error. But you shouldn't have to do it by trial and error. The white line is supposed to be the edge of the track, so we cut right over there. And of course you're going to see, and as everyone knows, I'm not going to get a penalty doing this. This is actually a really fast lap in this car time trial thing. So that, again, all the way inside the white line, barely on the track, but completely legal. And I forgot to put the display on, but you can see, again, over the white line. Forgot to put the display on, but you'll see that I won't get a penalty for all of those blatant track limit cuts. So the game wants you to cut the corners. So here's a classic real world track at Nürburgring. Perfect line, cut that corner, launch over the curb. This bollard, right over and wipe it out. So that's what you got to do. You got to launch completely off the track, out of track limits from the white lines. You're supposed to annihilate this cone. That cone exists. These cones or these bollards exist in real life to tempt drivers away from cutting the corner too much. But in GT7, they've set the track limits so that you have to annihilate that bollard. If you don't annihilate it, you haven't used all of the track. You haven't gone to GT7's track limits. So what's the point? Why have they put that bollard there, or why have they set the track limits like that? It's just dumb. I mean, it's just kind of not what racing limits are about. So either get rid of the bollard or change the track limits. Why have you put it there? But because of this nature of this track, and the track limits are set to like this, you have to launch through this chicane. And just prove the point, you can see this guy's got a penalty already, but he's not going to get any more penalty because he's done it to within the bounds of the game. Another example, someone else annihilating that bollard, just like he should, no penalty. So I did a live stream for a community doing commentary for this championship they're running, and this is kind of what's prompted me to do this video, because they were trying to do the drive to the track limits. They were trying to launch over curbs and being encouraged to launch over curbs despite the curb physics being dodgy and making it a lottery. And this is at Nürburgring, the same corner, and I call this chicane lottery chicane, and I made this point actually on the live commentary. It's at Nürburgring GP track. That chicane is, yeah, as scary as finding. It's horrible. You've got to ride the curbs big time on that to get through there with any sort of pace. And not just GT7, but all sims really are bad on curbs. I've never seen a sim yet which has curb physics right. it's always a lottery. Lay on the brakes, back to this lottery chicane, as I call it. Boom. Hey, and absolutely on cue. He looked like he got that first bit perfect as well. Perfect amount of curb. But, as I say, lottery chicane. Scary biker. Coming up to lottery chicane. Does he launch? Oh, they're spinning so on cue. Now you know why I call it lottery chicane. So that's part one of the problem, is dodgy curb physics and track limits, which want you to launch over curbs and invariably catches people out. Now, the second problem is that the curbs are also not legal. I've done a video about this before, and you'll see my point I'll make at the end when these two factors are combined with the dodgy track limits, the wrong track limits, the encouragement to launch over the curbs, and the fact that the curb's not legal. So here it says, all edges, verges and lateral areas should be level with the edge of the track, and all areas behind curbs filled in and level. There's an obvious reason why they do that in the real life, because you turn a curb into a sausage curb and it tends to launch cars in the air, and when they're in the air the wheels aren't on the ground and they're not in control. And you know which track I'm about to feature in a minute. Yes, of course, it's the fictional tracks. Dragon Trails Seaside. A guy launches there, causes chaos on the curbs, which it so happens all the time. It's just me going through the corner, full cut, over the curbs, over those dodgy curbs, me chasing someone, another quick guy, we go over, inside the white line, over the curbs, because that's where track limits encourages you to go, and that's where you have to go. So you have to ride these illegal curbs. And often this kind of thing happens. And that's just ruined a nice battle. Two guys fighting at the front. Race over. Again, more track limit cutting. Me go right inside the curb, inside the white line on the curb, and right off the track there, outside of that white line. No penalty. So you just have to do this everywhere. Some random lobby replayer downloaded, going over the curbs, launching, smacking into the walls. This guy, he was going through the good old death chicane, as it's well known, and of course launches over the curb, could be illegal curbs, and ends up in the wall. Some other guy following someone else who gets the same problem, and it ruins races. It's just pathetic. And this guy, when it doesn't launch you, it kind of sucks you off into a massive tank slapper, which this guy gets in some daily race, and he ends up losing the lead because of that as well, because the drop off of the curb on the inside, he lost it. But it's the same problem at real tracks. You know, I've gone off the track there, I've gone outside the white line there, I'm not going to get a penalty because that's not where the actual track limits are. And this is a real track, so this is a track to FIA regs. I'm going over the white line again, but it lets you do it over the white line again. Still no penalties. So it's not just the fictional tracks, but it's the real tracks as well. Now you'd have thought they'd have put the track limits to a kind of simulation of real track. I mean, I'm going to go massively off the track at some points on this, and if it lets you do it, then you have no choice but to do it. So off the track again there. Now I think there's this example I got off on the outside curb. Yep, there. So you have to do it, but these are legal curbs, so these aren't really a problem because this is a real track, and they've modelled the curbs, I guess, at the time when the curbs are like this, so you can do it, but you shouldn't be. The track limit should be the white line. Look at this, sailing right off, but I'll get no penalty because GT7, it's not even the curb, they've just decided to set an imaginary track limit marker that you can't see, and the game does know, and it just lets you cut the track like that. So, but because the curbs are legal, and you see that green bit there on the inside, that's all filled in. That's how they're supposed to be, grass verge, filled in, level with the curb. So you can ride the curbs and not get speared up into the air. So that's fine. Ish. So it lets you get away with that. More cutting, well over that white line. The penalty I had was already before then. Green bit, filled in, levelled curb, as it should be. So it wouldn't launch you if you did go over it. So this is the problem, it's the track limits, okay, and it's the curbs on the fictional tracks that are wrong. So this guy sucked out all over the place, causes chaos because of the drop off of the curb on the outside edge of the track. Another guy gets launched in the McLaren. So it causes its own problems. Look at this. This is me going off a track, right off the track, because I went a bit wide, but sucked off by the curb. No penalty, legal. So the problem is combined. It's track limits, which encourage you to launch over the curbs, and it's dodgy curb physics, which, to be fair, I've never seen a sim yet. As I said in that live stream commentary, I've never seen a sim yet which does curb physics right. Okay, so you know the track limits are wrong, you know the curb physics are dodgy, and you've also, on fictional tracks, created curbs which it actually seems like they're designed to launch cars in the air. Huh? So my question is, really, why have you done that on fictional tracks? Why have you set curbs that launch cars, track limits that means you have to go over them if you want to do a fast lap, a competitive lap, and everyone else will, and all it's doing is showing up the physics of the game to be crap? Why would you do that? This is the embarrassment bit. This is going back to the opening point. Is if you know your physics are dodgy, why would you design your fictional tracks that you can design any way you like, with any curbs you like, and they have done that with any curbs they like, any track limits they like, but they've actually designed them so that it's actually making a mockery of the developers? That's just madness. It's insane, and I don't get their thinking, if there was even any thinking. So why would you do that? It doesn't compute to me. But anyway, this is just one video. There's going to be loads and loads of things which GT7 fails, and it looks like the devs have, they've decided to leave it where it is. They're probably working on GT8. How many customers they'll lose because of issues like this, I've no idea. I'm going to be going to Assetto Corsa Evo when it's complete on PC. Absolutely no doubt about that at all. I will probably sell my PS5 and everything associated with Sony, and probably never come back, but then you never know. You never know. But that's the plan for me anyway. So anyway, this is one video. There's going to be more